Ever catch yourself in that endless loop? Wanting more, feeling like you're constantly chasing some finish line that just keeps moving.
Oh, definitely. That sort of underlying hum of not quite enough.
Yeah, that. It's something I think a lot of us grapple with.
Absolutely. And that feeling, it's actually the perfect place for us to start our exploration today.
Okay.
We're doing a deep dive into the work of Brene Brown, specifically her really groundbreaking book, Daring Greatly.
Right. Daring greatly. And this isn't just like a collection of feel-good advice. It's based on serious research.
Oh, completely. Over a decade of research, Brene Brown, she's a research professor, really a leading expert on these big topics: vulnerability, courage, worthiness, shame.
Big topics.
Hmm?
So in this deep dive, we're getting into some pretty fundamental questions she raises. Like, what is it about vulnerability that scares us so much?
Uh-huh. And what are the walls we build, to keep it at?
What do we lose when we shut down like that?
And crucially, how can we actually lean into vulnerability? How can that change how we connect with people, raise our families, even how we lead?
Right. How it can transform things.
Exactly. Our aim here is really to distill the core power of Brown's insights, make them immediately relevant to you listening.
So whether it's navigating a tough career, looking for deeper connections, or just wanting to live more authentically.
Yeah. Understanding these ideas can offer a surprisingly direct path to, well, meaningful change. Doesn't matter your background or field.
Okay, so let's start unpacking that first big idea. This concept Brown calls scarcity.
Yes, scarcity. It's that nagging feeling, never enough time, never enough money, approval.
And we're always comparing, right, our messy reality to everyone else's highlight reel online or whatever.
Constantly. But what's fascinating and maybe a bit counterintuitive is Brown argues the answer isn't just getting more stuff, more achievements.
It's not about abundance in that sense.
No, it's more internal. It's about believing we are enough right now, just as we are.
Okay. Enoughness.
Enoughness. And the surprising key she finds to unlock that feeling, it's embracing vulnerability.
Wow. So vulnerability isn't the problem. It's actually part of the solution to scarcity.
That's the core insight, reframing it, shifting from endless striving to recognizing our own inherent worth.
Which, okay, brings us right to why vulnerability feels so hard. All these myths around it.
So many myths. Let's tackle the first big one. Brown addresses vulnerability is weakness.
Yeah, we hear that all the time. Showing emotion, admitting you don't know something,
Mm.
it's seen as fragile, incompetent even.
But think about it. Vulnerability at its heart is just about feeling the whole range of human emotions: joy, grief, disappointment.
Being alive, basically.
Exactly. So to say vulnerability is weakness is like saying feeling is weakness.
Yeah.
And that just leads to living life on the surface, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally cut off. So the key insight there is vulnerability isn't a deficit, it's just human.
It's an essential human capacity. And then there's the next one. I don't do vulnerability.
Right, like you can just opt out. Put up a wall, especially at work maybe, or, based on how you think you should act.
But Brown's really clear on this. You can't actually opt out. It's inherent. Trying to suppress it often just makes us act, well, inauthentically.
Not like ourselves. Creates a disconnect.
Precisely. So the takeaway is avoiding vulnerability often leads straight to inauthenticity.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the idea that vulnerability is just oversharing, like telling everyone everything?
Yeah, the letting it all hang out myth. People imagine, just spilling your guts to anyone, which feels awful and frankly isn't helpful.
Right, that's not it.
No. True vulnerability, the way Brown describes it, it's thoughtful. It's sharing our stories, our feelings with people who've earned the right to hear them, people we trust.
So it's about boundaries and trust, appropriate sharing.
Exactly. It's about building intimacy and connection based on mutual respect, not just indiscriminate disclosure.
Got it. And the last myth, we can go it alone.
The rugged individual thing, our culture loves that narrative, doesn't it?
It really does. But Brown pushes back on that.
Strongly. When it comes to being vulnerable, having support isn't just nice, it's crucial. We're not meant to navigate this stuff in isolation.
So needing support isn't weakness either. It's essential.
It's essential for practicing vulnerability. And when you put all that together, when you clear away the myths,
Yeah.
you arrive at one of Brown's most powerful conclusions. I think it's worth quoting. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity.
Wow. Okay. That completely reframes it. What we fear is actually the source.
The source of basically everything we want in life. It's a huge shift in perspective.
Okay, so if vulnerability is so vital, what stops us? What gets in the way? You mentioned shame earlier.
Yes, shame. Brown defines it as this really profound fear of disconnection, that intensely painful feeling or belief that we're fundamentally flawed and therefore unworthy of love, unworthy of belonging.
That sounds heavy.
It is. And what's so insightful is how she describes it operating internally. Through these negative voices she calls shame tapes, or sometimes gremlins.
Gremlins, I like that, those nagging thoughts.
Exactly. Those recurring critical thoughts telling you you're not good enough, not smart enough, whatever enough. And they get louder when you feel exposed.
Like you're feeling vulnerable.
That's when they pipe up. It's how shame often manifests inside us, these repetitive negative loops.
So how do you fight the gremlins? How do you deal with that?
Well, she introduces this idea of shame resilience, which isn't about never feeling shame. That's probably impossible.
Wait.
It's about developing the ability to move through it, to navigate it without sacrificing your values or your sense of self-worth.
Okay, resilience. How does that work? What are the steps?
She breaks it down into 4 key elements. First, recognizing shame, just noticing it when it shows up and understanding what triggers it for you, what situations, what interactions.
Paying attention to your own patterns?
Exactly. Second is practicing critical awareness. Looking at those messages, those gremlin tapes, and questioning them. Are they true? Are they based on realistic expectations or just internal pressure?
Challenging the narrative.
Third, and this is huge, reaching out, sharing your experience with someone you trust. Connection, empathy. They are incredibly powerful antidotes to shame's isolation.
So don't keep it secret.
Definitely not. Which leads to the 4th element, speaking shame, actually talking about the feeling. Naming it helps diminish its power, stops it from festering inside.
Recognize, be aware, reach out, speak it.
Okay, and the fundamental message tying this all together, Brown really emphasizes this, is the contrast between worthiness and shame.
How so?
When you operate from a place of worthiness, believing you are enough, you're more likely to risk vulnerability, to share openly, to keep going when things are hard. Shame does the opposite. It keeps us small, hidden, afraid.
Worthiness fuels vulnerability. Shame shuts it down.
That's a great way to put it. And building on that, she identifies what she calls the vulnerability armory.
Armory, like defenses.
Exactly. Protective mechanisms we use to shield ourselves from the discomfort of feeling vulnerable. She highlights 3 main ones.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is maybe a surprising one. Foreboding joy.
Foreboding joy. What's that?
It's that feeling.
Yeah.
You know when something really good happens, and instead of just enjoying it, your immediate thought is, oh no, this can't last. When's the other shoe gonna drop?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Or,
It's like you're scared to feel too happy because something bad must be coming.
right. It's almost superstitious. You're bracing for impact even in moments of joy.
So how do you counter that?
Brown suggests actively practicing gratitude, intentionally focusing on what you have, what you appreciate right now.
Gratitude is an antidote.
Yeah, because it anchors you in the present good, making it harder to constantly worry about future loss. It cultivates that feeling of,
Enoughness again.
exactly, enoughness. Okay, the second shield in the armory. Perfectionism.
Ah, the pressure to be perfect. I think many people can relate to that one.
Definitely. It's this deep belief that if I can just do everything flawlessly, look perfect, present this perfect image, then I can avoid judgment, avoid shame.
Like perfect is the ultimate defense.
But it's an illusion, right? And Brown points out there's actually vulnerability in admitting we're not perfect and accepting we're all works in progress.
So the shift is what?
Moving away from that constant worry about what will people think towards embracing the truth. I am enough, flaws and all, appreciating the imperfections even.
I am enough, not I must be perfect.
Okay.
And the third shield.
The third one is numbing.
Numbing, like checking out.
Yeah. Turning to things could be food, alcohol, shopping, work, endless scrolling to try and dull the pain of difficult emotions, to avoid feeling vulnerable.
Trying to switch off the discomfort.
But here's the catch Brown highlights. You can't selectively numb. When you numb the pain, you also numb.
The joy, connection.
Exactly. You dull your capacity for joy, for connection, creativity, love. All the good stuff gets muted too.
Oof. Okay, so what's the way out of numbing?
She suggests things like setting healthy boundaries, finding true comfort, not just avoidance, and really importantly, cultivating your spirit, whatever that means for you. Practices that bring meaning and connection.
So learning to actually sit with the discomfort instead of running from it.
That's a big part of it, being present with the hard stuff.
Now, Brown takes these ideas beyond just the personal, right? She looks at leadership, organizations.
Yes, she introduces this concept of the disengagement divide.
Disengagement divide. What does that mean?
Well, think about times when you've felt vulnerable or maybe even shamed at work, perhaps due to how leadership handled something or just lack of trust. What's a common reaction?
To pull back, to check out, disengage.
Exactly. It's a self-protective move. The disengagement divide is specifically the gap between the values an organization says it has its aspirational values and how people actually behave, what's really rewarded the practiced values.
Ah, the gap between talk and walk.
Right. And that gap widens dramatically when vulnerability and shame aren't addressed openly and honestly, especially by leadership.
But she offers a way forward, not just identifying the problem.
Yes, she talks about disruptive engagement.
Disruptive engagement. Sounds interesting.
It's about consciously working to reignite creativity, innovation, that genuine desire to learn. And the way to do it is by rehumanizing work and education, bringing humanity back in.
Putting people first, fostering connection.
Exactly. And she gives 3 key strategies for how to do this. First, actively combat shame within the system. Recognize how it kills engagement.
Address shame head on.
Okay. Second, eliminate blame. Understand that blaming is often just discharging our own discomfort and vulnerability onto someone else.
Move away from the blame game.
And third, engage in feedback. Create a culture where feedback is normal, expected, and constructive. It helps people feel seen, valued, invested.
So combat shame, eliminate blame, encourage feedback. That fosters engagement.
That fosters disruptive engagement, reconnecting people.
Okay. And she also connects all this to parenting, right?
Oh, absolutely. A really powerful section. She emphasizes that who we are as parents is far more influential than any specific technique we use.
It's about modeling.
Very much so.
Yeah.
She poses this incredibly thought-provoking question for parents. Are you the adult you want your child to grow up to be?
Wow. That really brings it home. It loops back to daring greatly ourselves, doesn't it, within that whole never enough culture?
Precisely. It starts with us. And, to kind of bring all these threads together, Brene Brown herself says something really powerful.
What's that?
She says, daring greatly is not about winning or losing. It's about courage.
Courage.
Yeah. In a world that often pushes scarcity and fears judgment, choosing vulnerability, it feels radical, maybe even a bit dangerous.
It can feel risky.
But as she puts it so clearly, nothing is actually more uncomfortable, more painful than standing on the sidelines of your own life, constantly wondering, what if? What if I'd shown up, let myself be seen?
Living half a life because you're afraid. That resonates. And the reviewer we looked at, they really picked up on that transformative power.
They absolutely did. Describe the book as genuinely transformative, insightful, urging readers to look inward, honestly, at challenging stuff.
And they mentioned her writing style.
Yeah, specifically noted how accessible and authentic it feels, which makes these big, complex ideas relatable. You feel like she's right there with you. It really underscores why her work connects with so many people.
Definitely. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into daring greatly, we've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. From scarcity and those vulnerability myths to shame resilience, the armory we use to protect ourselves.
Right, the disengagement divide, and ultimately that call to dare greatly, to live wholeheartedly.
In all parts of life.
So now, for you listening, as you process all this, we wanted to leave you with some of those reflective questions Brene Brown encourages. Sort of little time to think for yourself.
Yeah, food for thought. Like, what does vulnerability actually look and feel like for you, personally?
And what are some things you might do or try if you weren't afraid? Afraid of being seen or judged?
Who are those people in your life? Your real people, she might call them. The ones who've earned the right to hear your story, where you feel safe being vulnerable.
That's a good one. Also, what secrets or hidden parts of yourself might you be holding back out of that fear?
And maybe thinking practically. What are some concrete ways, even small ones, you could intentionally cultivate more gratitude? In your daily life, at home, at work?
Lots to reflect on there.
Definitely. And perhaps here's a final thought to leave you with. If you did choose to lean into vulnerability more, to embrace imperfection, to show up more authentically, what might that unlock? What new possibilities for connection, for joy, for making a difference? What might open up in your own life? It's a challenging question maybe, but
But potentially incredibly rewarding to explore.
exactly. Something to continue exploring.